Hello, welcome to La Excellence. In our recap program, we are discussing monthly current affairs videos of 1 year. In this video, let us discuss April 2021 related current issues. This is part 2 of the video. PDF of this is available in the link mentioned in the description. If you want to write test series based on monthly current affairs videos, you can join by clicking on the below link. Let us start with economy related issues. Our first issue is fair and remunerative price for sugarcane. Sugarcane prices are decided by both center and state. It is under Sugarcane Control Order 1966. Before 2010, we used to call this as statutory minimum price SMP. In 2009, we changed the concept of MSP and we replaced it with fair and remunerative price FRP. According to this, Center announces FRP price based on the advice of Commission on Agricultural Costs and Prices. This is the advisory body under Ministry of Agriculture, technical and advisory body, and it is finalized by FRP is finalized by Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. In addition to this, if state wants to provide additional price, we call it as state advised prices. State advised prices are announced by the key sugarcane producing states, which is in general higher than FRP. That means states add some more amount and then they announce FRP plus. That price is known as state advised prices. According to Sugarcane Control Order, fixation of FRP is based on two considerations. What are they? 1. Cost of production of sugarcane. 2. Return to the growers, sugarcane growers, from alternative crops and the general trend of the prices. Based on these components, sugarcane prices, FRP prices are fixed by the government. FRP is applicable only for sugarcane. For other crops, we have MSP, minimum support price. Next issue is Ponzi scheme. Ponzi scheme is a form of fraud. It lures the investor and pays profits to the earlier investors with the funds from the more recent investors. Let us understand this. Let's say this person is the schemer. The schemer adds two more persons and each individual is asked to add two more individuals. So they add two more based on the investments put in by these individuals. These people are paid the returns. And based on these people's investment, these people are given returns. Likewise, but when it ends, when this network ends, everyone will be at loss. All these people at the bottom, they all lose. Such schemes are known as network schemes or Ponzi schemes. In India, to address this Ponzi scheme related financial crimes, we have this act known as Banning Unregulated Deposit Schemes Act 2019. This provides for uniform comprehensive legislation to regulate the deposit taking and to provide effective investor protection. This law clearly defines what is deposit taking activity, and it says that by way of business we can take the deposits. Such deposit taking activities which are not regulated by either RBI or SEBI or other institutions, these are known as unregulated deposits. It bans all illicit unregulated deposit schemes, all illicit unregulated schemes. Deposit schemes are regulated by SEBI, IRDAI, RBI, Pension Fund Regulatory Development Authority, EPFO and state governments. Cooperative Societies Act also provides for deposits. Chit funds under Chit Fund Act, which was amended in 2018. Money lenders regulated by state acts. Deposit are loans taken by people for doing business. Other than these, other deposits are known as unregulated deposits. And unregulated deposits are banned under this Banning of Unregulated Deposit Schemes Act 2019. It provides for stringent punishments in case of violation of these norms. No ban on the loan from relative to tide over a case. Individuals can also take loan from institutions regulated by these regulators. Loan from friends for marriage, medical purpose, etc. They are exempted. These are not considered deposits. These transactions are not called as unregulated deposit schemes under Section 2, Subclause 17. Yes? Next issue is central bank digital currency. Our RBI is thinking to introduce a central bank digital currency. China has already introduced and has implemented a pilot project on its CBDC central bank digital currency, which is known as digital yuan. So, in this context, in India, SC Garg Committee on Cryptocurrency has recommended to ban all private cryptocurrency related activities, and it has suggested a jail term of 1 to 10 years for exchange or trade in the digital currency, private digital currency. It proposed a monetary penalty in transactions in digital currency, but it said that government through central bank, that is through RBI, can think of introducing central bank digital currency. There are many countries which are thinking of introducing their own central bank digital currency. Normal currencies are printed, yes or no, even if we have bank balance, when we withdraw, we get the money in the form of printed currency, which is known as fiat currency. Government recognizes it. That's why it is known as fiat currency. But these currencies and digital currencies are not regulated by anyone. Their prices fluctuate. There won't be any central control, no KYC norms, nothing. In this context, that can lead to money laundering and other financial crimes. It can lead to more volatility in the market. That is why central bank digital currency is proposed. This supports the resilient payment system. It avoids the risks of new form of private money creation. It supports the competition efficiency and innovation in payments. It meets the future payment needs of digital economy. It improvises the availability, usability of central bank money. It addresses the consequences of decline in cash, where cash amounts are declining. So, in a digital economy, so this can address that. It acts as a building block for better cross border payments. In a blockchain technology, CBDC is built over blockchain technology. In a blockchain technology, no cross border transaction payments will be involved. So, this helps in transaction of money seamlessly. No currency barriers, no exchange. It's all done with a very, very simple procedure. Next issue is universal basic income. Universal basic income means all the citizens of a particular area should be given a sum of money irrespective of their income, resources, employment status, etc. UBI has these characteristics: universality, unconditionality, periodicity, payments in the form of cash, not in the form of kind. So, but there are pros and cons to this initiative. Universal basic income. Pros means positives. It would encourage the people to achieve better by providing minimum security. It removes the people from poverty trap. Citizens can have a simple, straightforward financial assistance, so transferring money becomes simple under UBI. No pilferages, no ghost users. But cons include, let's say, by removing all the subsidies we provided, the cash transfer under UBI. Now, a poor family who are serving on a ration using PDS now will have to buy from the market. That leads to inflation. Inflation, goods and services might not be accessible. It might not incentive people. It might not provide incentives to the people to work hard. So, laziness, etc., labor force participation might reduce. These are some of the cons of universal basic income. There are arguments for introducing such schemes, at least conditional cash transfer schemes, during the COVID pandemic. That's why this was the news. Next issue is white goods. Recently, Union Cabinet has approved Production Linked Incentive Scheme for White Goods, PLI, for white goods. What are white goods? Air conditioners, TVs, LED lights, these are called as white goods. These are major appliances, domestic and large electric appliances, which are known as white goods. And PLI scheme promotes the domestic manufacturing. It promotes exports, it promotes employment. That's why overall in 13 sectors, PLI was introduced, and slowly government through Union Cabinet is approving them and is providing financial assistance. In case of PLI for white goods, incentive of 4 to 6% on the incremental sales of manufactured goods will be provided. It will be implemented as a pan-India scheme. Please remember, all these initiatives under PLI will be implemented by the respective ministries. Yes. Next issue is GSAP 1.0. RBI has recently initiated Government Security Acquisition Program. Government through RBI releases certain bonds to gather the money and it sells these bonds, it buys these bonds. These bonds through RBI, which are issued through the RBI by the government, are known as government securities. These governments can be sold and purchased, acquired using open market operation. Open market operation means sale and purchase of government securities and treasury bills by the RBI. In this case, our central bank is RBI. Objective of OMO is to regulate the money supply in the market. That is why it is known as quantitative monetary policy tool. There are two methods of OMO. One is outright purchase. Second one is repurchase agreement. Outright purchase means permanently we sell or buy the government securities. Repurchase means these are short term and they are subjected to repurchase. Government sells and repurchases it. What is the significance of this government security acquisition program? In this, government through RBI acquires the government securities. That means money will be given to the people. When money supply increases in the market, it enhances the money supply so that demand revival happens. This can revive the economy. With that objective, government has introduced, through RBI has introduced this government security acquisition program. This will orderly evolve the yield curve. In the last month's current affairs video, we have discussed about bond yields and how they get impacted because of this sale and purchase of government security. Try to recollect that once. GSAP 1.0, it will provide more comfort to the bond market. As the borrowing of the government increased in this year, RBI has to ensure that there are no disruptions in the Indian market. Why there is disruption in the market? When government borrows more, it leads to crowding out effect. Crowding out means everyone tend to give money to government. That makes the private sector to crowd out for investment. But by selling these bonds, more money supply will be added to the market. So private sector will get the money, easy money for their investment. That is why the RBI has introduced GSAP. This will help to reduce the spread between repo rate and 10-year government bond yield. GSAP almost serve the purpose of OMO, open market operations. Next issue is currency manipulator status. Recently, USA has placed 11 countries in currency manipulator watch list. Among them, India is one such country. Why USA has placed our country as the currency manipulator? There are three criteria which is used by the USA under Trade Facilitation and Trade Enforcement Act of 2015, which places the countries in watch list. What are these three conditions, three criteria? One is having significant bilateral trade surplus with USA, material current account surplus, persistent one-side intervention, that is buying and selling of foreign currency through the central bank. India is doing all the three, but inherently we have trade surplus with US because of our more exports to US. Second one, current account is not because of our anti-competitive practices. Current account surplus is because of the reduced demand for oil. Crude oil is one of the major import item of India. So that reduced because of slowdown of the economy. Then third one, RBI intervenes very frequently in the forex market. It is not the first time. But still, USA has placed India in the currency manipulator status based on three criteria. 1. Bilateral trade surplus with USA. 2. Current account surplus equivalent to 2% of GSDP. 3. Foreign currency selling and purchasing. Next issue is currency swap facility. So recently Bangladesh and Sri Lanka has made a currency swap facility. What is this currency swap facility? Let's say in this case Bangladesh has given dollars, in this case $200 million to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is facing forex crisis, BOP crisis. So it gives Sri Lankan currency to Bangladesh of equivalent amount to $200 million and it takes this foreign currency. Now whenever Bangladesh requires Sri Lanka will do the same thing. Such agreements are known as currency swap. They are exchanging the currencies, that's it. Not in a hard currency. One is giving the domestic currency because of its forex problem. So there are many countries which have currency swap facilities. We have SAARC facility. We have currency swap agreements with Japan, South Korea and many other countries. RBI has a framework for currency swap facilities under SAARC system. Based on the bilateral agreements between two countries, this swap facility will be implemented. In this context, exchange rate risk means currency risk. It is the financial risk arising from the fluctuations in the value of base currency against a foreign currency. To deal with this, we borrow. There are swap operations. They carry no exchange rate or other market risks are less because we are not transacting in foreign currency. One is transacting in the domestic currency, the other one is just borrowing it. That is why. This is significant because Bangladesh is a smaller country in South Asia region. According to SAARC, it is assumed that India is the bigger country which can borrow, which can give money under currency swap facility. But this is the first time Bangladesh has done it, and this is significant in the South Asian region. Next issue is Regulations Review Authority. RBI is the regulator for the financial sector, especially banking sector and non-banking financial companies in India. So in this context, RBI initially in the year 1999 has constituted Regulations Review Authority. This authority consults the mechanisms that are reviewed, that is banks, urban cooperative banks, non-banking financial institutions, etc. These are regulated by RBI. So this authority consults them and asks them, do you have any problem with these regulations? Are there any complexities? Like that, they take the feedback and they suggest that these can be the changes that you can make in your regulations. That is how Regulations Review Authority functions. First it was appointed in 1999. Now recently it was appointed for 1 year from 2021 to 2022. This will consult and then gives the suggestions. Based on that, RBI can change the regulatory mechanism. Such authorities are known as Regulations Review Authority. Next issue is PNB scam, Punjab National Bank scam. Recently, UK Home Department has approved for extradition of Nirav Modi, who is declared as FEO, Fugitive Economic Offender. First Fugitive Economic Offender under FEO Act 2018 is Vijay Mallya. Nirav Modi is declared as the second Fugitive Economic Offender. In this context, what is the issue here? As we know, he is diamond merchant. Buyer's credit. There is a concept known as buyer's credit. Let's say this is the bank, and these banks, they deal with foreign banks when they export or import. Yes or no? So in this context, the importing country in India, this Nirav Modi's company, they say that, see, we are importing, we want to buy certain raw material, you give us some credit. When we export, out of the money, we will pay that buyer's credit back. That is how they have shown the fake export receipts, and they have taken the buyer's credit. And some of the officials in this bank, they have issued letter of undertakings, that means request letters. They have given the request letters, and based on that they have taken buyer's credit, LOUs. Based on that, this company has taken buyer's credit. That they have given multiple times without checking. That led to this particular scam. That means buyer's credit is a short-term loans facility extended to an importer by a bank to finance goods and services. It's a common mode of transaction in the international trade, where this bank extends the credit to the importer and a finance agency based on the exporter country's guarantees the loan. That means if this bank guarantees the loan, okay, they're exporting to us, they're exporting to the company, they have bank account with me, so you can give the loan. That is how buyer's credit will be provided. And there is no sanctioned limit in the name of the firms. Buyer's credit can be taken of any amount, of any number of times. And the branch officials, they requested the firms to furnish 100% cash margin to issue the LOU. That means banks issue LOU to raise the buyer credit. In this particular case, in this case, bank officials, they discovered that two of the bank employees fraudulently issued LOUs in the past without following the procedure. And these employees, they transmitted swift instruction that this bank has paid this much money to this company. Like that, they have sent the fake messages. This led to fraud in this case. Buyer's credit and LOU both needs to be clear. Next issue is how to tackle the inflation. In India, in the month of April that we are discussing, we had higher levels of inflation both in WPI and CPI, wholesale price index and consumer price index. On both the indicators we had higher inflation, but growth rate was very slow. In this context, how do we address the inflation? See, in the last month's issue, we have discussed that there is a committee known as Monetary Policy Committee, wherein three of the members are appointed by the RBI and three are from government. They collectively decide how to go for price control. Monetary Policy Committee, based on Urjit Patel's committee, the recommendations, this MPC was appointed by amending the RBI Act. According to this committee, for once in 5 years, monetary policy target needs to be changed. According to the earlier target, 4 plus or minus 2 is the maximum and minimum limits. Now, it needs to be reviewed. It was adopted in 2016. Now, after 5 years means in 2021, we need to review. We reviewed it, RBI has reviewed it, and it has said that no need of changing this particular limit. 4 plus or minus 2 holds good for next 5 years also. In this context, but inflation levels are high. How to tackle them? There are various means and methods. One is government can try to control the wages and the price controls, but that leads to job losses and recession, so we can't take it in the present context. Governments can employ contractionary monetary policy. That means it can increase the interest rates, so the money supply reduces, but it affects the investments. We can't do that. So the only option that we have is to deal with the supply, to ensure that supply of goods and services happen without any impediments. Next issue is Operation Twist by the RBI. Operation Twist means twisting. We sell certain bonds and we buy other bonds. Parallelly selling and buying the bonds. We sell the short-term bonds and we buy the long-term bonds. Such operation is known as Operation Twisting. We twist. There is no additional money supply in this way. Let's say if we buy 100 crores of bonds, we sell 100 crores of bonds. But why to sell and buy? We sell the short-term bonds. We buy the long-term bonds. Such operation is known as Operation Twist. Initially, it was introduced in USA in 1960s. Now, RBI has employed this method. This simultaneous purchase and sale will bring down the interest on the long-term loans, and it leads to increase in the economic spending, because when the interest on long-term loans is reduced, as banks use these interest rates as the benchmark rates for calculating the present interest rates also reduce. When the interest rates reduce, money supply increases. This increase in the money supply leads to more investment opportunities. OMOs are primarily done to maintain the liquidity in the system. It is reflected in the lower interest rates to the borrowers. This is open market operation. This Operation Twist means we are selling and buying. That means it's some open market operation. This Operation Twist by RBI is encouraging the market. It is a step for enhancing the economic activity in the country. Operation Twist, they reduce the interest rate on the long-term bonds. Next issue is Pre-packed Insolvency Resolution Plan. Banks and other institutions, when they lend money, if the person or company who has taken the loan is unable to pay it back, we call it as NPA, non-performing asset. We want to recover the money that we have given banks and all. So there is a resolution plan that is proposed under IBC, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Under IBC, NCLT, National Company Law Tribunal, is the nodal agency that prepares the resolution plan. But that is taking a lot of time and there are delays. To deal with that, government has appointed Dr. M.S. Sahu Committee. This committee has recommended for pre-packaged insolvency resolution plan. That means, what is the meaning of pre-packaged insolvency resolution plan? It is an agreement for the resolution of the debt of the distressed company through an agreement between the secured creditors and the investors instead of public bidding process. As of now, under IBC, public bidding goes, whoever pays more, they will be given the authority on the company. But here, set of creditors will be there and set of investors will be there. They decide. They will have a plan instead of placing it for the public bidding. This system of insolvency proceeding, it is more popular in UK and other countries. India is also trying to adopt that. What are the benefits by this? It is cost effective and it minimizes the value and preserves the employment. It lessens the burden on the National Company Law Tribunal. It reduces the delays also. But then what are the criticisms of pre-packaged insolvency resolution plan? Only corporate debtors, that is companies and limited liability partnerships are covered under this. MSMEs and others are not covered under this. And strict timelines are there. 90 days is the timeline. Within this, resolution plan needs to be submitted. That might not be effective. Corporate debtor, board of corporate debtor will not be suspended. They continue to manage the affairs of the company as a go. It's also a concern. As they continue to manage, it can lead to conflict. So that is also one of the concerns under pre-packaged insolvency resolution plan. Next issue is day ahead market. In India, we have Indian Energy Exchange. Indian Energy Exchange is electricity market and recently it has achieved all-time high volume in the month of March 2021. That is why it was news. In that, day ahead, two types of delivery of electricity plans are there. One is day ahead market. Two is term ahead market. Day ahead market means, let's say a company requires power for these timing that in these times for next one day. So that market, then they purchase such agreements from Indian Energy Exchange. So next day, that is in the next 24 hours, physical supply of electricity will be provided to that particular market. Term ahead market means there is a contract. Under this, range for buying and selling the electricity is for the duration up to 11 days. That is why it is known as term ahead market. Indian Energy Exchange is similar to stock exchanges, but here we buy and sell the contracts. Based on them, physical form of electricity is supplied to that company or to that particular industry. Next issue is Codex Alimentarius Commission. This is the commission that sets the food standards, food safety standards. It's an intergovernmental body established jointly by UNFAO and World Health Organization in the year 1963 within the framework of Joint Food Standards Program. They provide the Joint Food Standards Framework. And this secretariat is hosted in FAO. It meets regularly and food standards are set up by the CAC. Codex Alimentarius is a collection of international food standards that have been adopted by this commission. These codex standards, they cover all the main foods, whether they are processed, semi-processed or raw material, they cover all the foods. In addition, materials used in further processing of food products, such as to what amount the technology can be used, what additives can be added, these also will be given the regulations. These codex provisions, they concern the hygiene and nutritional quality of the food, including microbiological norms, food additives, pesticides, veterinary drug residues, contaminants, labeling and presentation, methods of sampling, etc. Codex standards are applicable to all these areas. Recently, Food Safety and Standards Authority of India has inaugurated 5th session of Codex Committee on Spices and Culinary Herbs. That is why this is in news. Next issue is IMF and related reports. IMF and World Bank together are called as Bretton Woods institutions. It's an international financial organization. Its major function is to bail out the countries out of BOP crisis. It releases two major reports. One is Global Financial Stability Report, two is World Economic Outlook Report. There are special drawing rights provided by the IMF based on the quota. What do we mean by quota? Each member of IMF is allocated a quota and this quota is denoted in special drawing rights. That means based on the capital subscription of the member country, each country has the quota. Let's say India has 1% of share in the IMF, so it has 1% of SDRs. SDR is International Reserve Asset, which is created by IMF in 1969. It supplements the member countries' official reserves. SDR transaction can be done between the countries. These can be used as a reserve currency by the RBI and other central banks. Next issue is Peace Clause of WTO. Recently, India has invoked Peace Clause of WTO. In the year 1995, GATS was reformed, General Agreement on Trade and Tariff. This GATS is constituted as WTO with wider mandate, WTO. Under WTO, we have an agreement known as Agreement on Agriculture. Under Agreement on Agriculture, overall WTO's major aim is to promote competitiveness, free and fair competition. Now, under Agreement on Agriculture, under WTO, it provides that subsidies can be given, but these subsidies, agricultural subsidies, needs to be minimized. Otherwise, this can affect the competition, agricultural market competition. That's why it places limitations. But some countries, they cross these limits. As per the AOA, maximum limit on direct subsidies is 10%. When we cross that limit, generally punishment will be given by WTO. To avoid that, we have a special clause known as Peace Clause under WTO. This clause protects India's food procurement programs against the action by WTO. Earlier in 2018 and 19, we have invoked Peace Clause. Now again we invoked it. Overall, we are providing 13.7% of subsidies, but overall permitted subsidy limit is 10% only. Let us see what is this. Under AOA, domestic support can be provided to the crops, and these subsidies and support is divided into three subsidies. 1. Green box subsidy. 2. Blue box subsidy. 3. Amber box subsidy. Green box subsidy means for R&D etc. If the government subsidizes, we call that as green box subsidy. Blue box subsidy means production limitation subsidies. These are for a shorter period. Countries, they give these subsidies to limit their production. So these two, blue box subsidies and green box subsidies, are known as non-trade distorting subsidies. They are not considered as trade distorting. But amber box subsidies, all other support are part of it. There is a limit for amber box subsidies which is known as minimum limit, called as de minimis. 10% of total agricultural produce is known as de minimis level. So if more subsidies are there above 10%, then WTO can take action. But India invoked Peace Clause. Peace Clause, we said, India is not providing subsidies to go for trade distortions. India is providing subsidy, 1, to maintain buffer stock and to maintain stock for its PDS, 2, to support its fragile agriculture sector. It's not for to increase the agricultural exports. So that's why Peace Clause is an exemption given to us. In WTO's terminology, subsidies in general are decided by boxes which are given green, amber and red. Red means forbidden. These are not there. Green, amber box subsidy, blue box subsidies are there. It comes under Agreement on Agriculture. Domestic support is part of it. Under AOA, Agreement on Agriculture, we have 3 boxes: green box, blue box and amber box. And for developmental programs, if we use them, these are provided exceptions. India is provided exceptions under this. Next issue is Niti Aayog has provided a handbook on online dispute resolution mechanism. There are alternative dispute resolution mechanisms such as negotiations, mediation and arbitration. Niti Aayog has recently issued online dispute resolution handbook, and according to this, online dispute resolution needs to be done so that particularly small and medium value cases can be resolved quickly without any delays. that improves the ease of doing business. In that context, since 2006, there are many measures that are taken by the Indian government to promote online dispute resolution mechanism. These are the recent measures. Just go through them once, just go through the stable ones. Next, let us discuss governance related aspects. First one is National Policy on Rare Diseases. National Policy on Rare Diseases 2021. Recently, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, it has approved National Rare Diseases Policy 2021. Rare diseases means these diseases, they spread across the population very rarely. As less number of people gets impacted by these diseases, medicines, treatment procedures, these are not fully evolved, and most of these diseases are life-threatening diseases. Some of the examples for rare diseases which are recognized by Indian government are hemophilia, thalassemia, sickle cell anemia, primary immunodeficiency in children, autoimmune diseases, lysosomal storage disorders. These are some of the rare diseases listed in India. And what are the points under this particular policy? It provides one-time support of 20 lakh rupees for the individual with certain rare diseases. And assistance is not just extended to BPL families. About 40% of the population are covered under Pradhana Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. This 20 lakh financial assistance is not under Pradhana Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, but it is through the scheme of Jan Arogya Nidhi. Jan Arogya Nidhi. National consortium means group. National consortium would be set up to focus on the indigenous research, to promote local production of medicines, to reduce the high cost of treatment. It envisages creation of national hospital-based registry so that we will have clear idea on what are the various rare earth diseases that are more prevalent in India. And to focus on early screening and prevention through primary and secondary healthcare facilities, infrastructural facilities will be provided in health and wellness centers, district early intervention centers, Nidan Kendras. And 8 healthcare facilities will be declared as Center of Excellence. For example, AIIMS. Such institutions are declared as a Center for Excellence to strengthen the tertiary healthcare infrastructure for the prevention and treatment of rare diseases. These 8 centers of excellence, they would be provided with one-time financial support of 5 crore rupees for upgradation of diagnostic facilities. According to this policy, crowdfunding mechanism would be used to seek the funds contributions from corporates and individuals. These funds collected through crowdfunding will be utilized for the Center of Excellence for the treatment as a first charge, 2. For the beneficial financial resources for the research. But the limitation of the amount, 20 lakhs is limitation in case of rare disease, limitation of the amount, and it's a one-time grant. Coverage of disease is less. These are some of the issues related to this policy. Next issue is consumption of narcotics and drugs. Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act 1985, it deals with narcotics and drug related cases in India. India is signatory for UN Convention on Narcotic Drugs and Convention on Psychotropic Substances and Convention on Illicit Traffic in Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances. Based on these conventions, India enacted this particular act. It provides the legislative and administrative framework. This act provides stringent provisions for the control and regulations of operations related to narcotics and psychotropic drugs. And it also provides for forfeiture of property in case of illicit traffic in narcotic drugs. And it imposes death penalty in cases of for the repeated offenders. Death penalty is proposed under this particular act. Next issue is Press Freedom Index. India achieved 142nd rank out of 180 members in Reporters Without Borders index known as Press Freedom Index. Press freedom is part of Indian Constitution. It's an implicit right under Article 19(1)(a), that is freedom of speech and expression. But press freedom is not an absolute right. It has reasonable limitations under Article 19(2). Next issue is Startup India Seed Fund Scheme. Recently, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, it has launched Startup India Seed Fund Scheme. Under that, as in the Prarambh International Summit, we have launched this Startup India Seed Fund Scheme. Under this, ideas which are there at the incubation level, they will be provided with the financial facilitation. Startups creating innovative solutions such areas such as social impact, waste management, financial inclusion, education, biotech, healthcare, in all these areas, startups would be supported with this Startup India Seed Fund. An expert advisory committee constituted by Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, it will be responsible for the execution of this. And National Startup Advisory Council, it provides the suggestions on improvising the startup ecosystem in India. Recently, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, it has chaired the first meeting of National Startup Advisory Council. Chairman is Minister for Commerce and Industry. It is set up by the Department of Promotion for Industry and Internal Trade. It provides the strong ecosystem for nurturing the innovation and startups. Members consist of central government officials and founders of major startups and various concerned members from various concerned ministries and departments. What are the functions of National Startup Advisory Council? It suggests the measures to foster culture of innovation among the students and citizens, which promotes the startup ecosystem in India. It provides the support for the innovative ideas through incubation and research development. Next issue is eSanta platform. eSanta platform is created recently by Union Minister of Commerce and Industry. It is electronic solution for augmenting NACSA farmers trade in aquaculture. NACSA means National Center for Sustainable Aquaculture. That means it is similar to our eNAM. That is, it's an electronic marketplace that provides a common platform to connect the aqua farmers with the exporters. This provides connectivity between the aqua farmers and exporters. It will raise the income, lifestyle, and self-reliance. It will raises the quality levels and the traceability for the aqua farmers. And this National Center for Sustainable Aquaculture, it's part of Marine Product Export Development Authority. eSanta, it's a marketplace for aqua farmers. Next issue is Eat Smart Cities Challenge. Ministry of Urban Development has released this and Transport for All challenge. Under this challenge, whatever the smart cities and capital cities of states and union territories with a population of more than 5 lakh, they can participate in this challenge if in the public places, if Eat Smart means eatery places, etc., if they maintain hygiene, etc., these will be selected for these awards. That challenge is known as Eat Smart Cities Challenge. Next issue is Pradhana Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. In last year, government has launched Pradhana Mantri Garib Kalyan package. Under that, this is one single component. This is to distribute the food grains under Pradhana Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. This scheme was recently rolled out for 2 more months. That's why it was in news in the month of April. Nodal ministry to implement this scheme is Ministry of Finance. Under PDS, both center and states contribute, they supply the food grains. But under Pradhana Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, only central government contributes the money, states supply in addition to the food grains provided under PDS. This is in addition to the food grains provided under PDS. In PDS, we pay the minimum cost. Under Pradhana Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, food grains such as rice and wheat and 1 kg of pulses are provided free of cost to all the beneficiaries covered under National Food Security Act. Next issue is National Rural Health Statistics Report 2021-22. Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has recently released Rural Health Statistics Report. According to this, over the year, there's increase in number of centers at all the 3 tiers health centers, and primary, secondary, tertiary health centers are overburdened. There are shortage of specialists to the extent of 75%. There are overall shortage of healthcare workers in all the levels in the rural areas. See, there are health divides in rural and urban areas. Most of the healthcare professionals and healthcare workers are concentrated in the urban areas, but population is in rural areas. So divides are there, disparities are there. Next issue is Swamitwa scheme. Under Swamitwa scheme, recently our Prime Minister has launched e-property cards. That's why it was in news. Swamitwa scheme was launched in the year 2020. According to this, a pilot project is implemented in few states to survey the rural land using drones and other modern surveying technologies. Here, Ministry of Panchayati Raj Nodal Agency, State Panchayati Raj, the Survey of India, these participate. They use drones to survey the land and they provide the conclusive land titling. So then they will be provided with e-property cards. E-property cards. Swamitwa scheme was launched in 2020 on National Panchayat Raj Day. It is to map the rural inhabited land through drones and new technology. Title deeds will be issued on the basis of this mapping. Swamitwa to people through identification of property rights and setting the property. This settles the property disputes in the rural India. It streamlines the revenue collection through property taxes, etc. Swamitwa scheme important. Next issue is Copyrights Amendment Act. Recently, copyright amendment rules are notified. That's why it's in news. What is the meaning of copyright? Copyright is an intellectual property right, IPR. These IPRs are dealt under Ministry of Commerce and Industry under DPIIT, Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. It gives the owner exclusive right to make the copies of his or her creative artworks such as movies, songs, paintings, artworks, etc. And we have World Intellectual Property Rights Organization. According to this, copyright protects two types of rights. One, economic rights of the individual. Two, moral rights. That means the creative work on their name, that's moral right they hold because of their creativity. Yes or no? Now, according to these new rules, copyright societies will have to make annual transparency report for each financial year. Amendments have harmonized the copyright rules with the provisions of Finance Act 2017. Compliance requirements of registration works have been reduced. Time limit for the central government to respond to the copyright application have been extended to the 180 days. These are some of the provisions under recent Copyright Rules 2021. Along with copyrights, there are other intellectual property rights such as patents, industrial designs, GI tags. These are also known as intellectual property rights. Last issue is E9 countries on E9 initiative. This is by the United Nations, where E9, that means Education 9, in emerging 9 countries such as Bangladesh, Brazil, China, Egypt, India, Indonesia, Mexico, Nigeria, Pakistan. In all these countries, E9 initiative was started. E9 is the first of three-phased process to co-create an initiative for digital learning under United Nations. It provides support to the teachers, it provides investment in skills, it is to narrow down the digital divide. It is to achieve Sustainable Development Goal 4 under United Nations Development Program. E9 countries for E9 initiative is on education and improving the quality of education, especially digital education. These are the issues of part 2 of April 2021. Thank you very much. All the very best.